Now is the time for America to chart its course to a green energy future. And we can't do it without clean hydrogen. But it's up to regulators in Washington to establish the right rules that advance clean hydrogen today. Clean hydrogen needs the full extent of the production tax credit to decarbonize heavy industry, create high-skilled jobs, and lead the global energy transition. Get the facts at cleanhydrogentoday.org. Paid for by the Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Energy Association.
The Shark Deck.
I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Golf.com spoke to George Lopez about Eddie Van Halen. What'd you think we were going to talk about? And they said, hey, before he passed away, Eddie was one of your favorite golf buddies. What bonded you guys? George said, oh, man. You know, they used to say all the pretty girls are at home on Saturday night because nobody asked them out. Eddie was so talented in his profession that he was shy. And when he was using, he didn't have to notice that everybody was looking at him, but he was always home. He never went anywhere. People on my old talk show asked me, who's your favorite guitar player? They wanted to get me a guitar as a present because they knew I played. And I said, Jimmy Page, Eddie Van Halen. That was it. So I go to the office one day, a woman's standing there with this thing. She opens it up and I go, what's that? And she says, it's a gift to you from the show, but it's from my husband too. And I said, who's your husband? Eddie Van Halen. I said, get the F out of here. You know him? And Janie, his wife, said, I woke up next to him. And then she said, why don't you call him and ask him to go to dinner? So we went to dinner and I said, hey, are you a member of Lakeside? And he says, yeah. And then he said the most beautiful words, we got to go out and play. Here's the thing. Ed was very childlike in his enthusiasm for everything that wasn't music. Golf, he effing loved it. Salon asked David Cross, are there times when you're writing a joke and you're like, this is too sensitive for too many people, can't do it? Cross said, there's certainly some jokes I might either say or laugh at when I'm amongst friends in a private setting. If it was at a bar and somebody comes up with something and I know the context and they know the context. Jokes that hurt people who are victimized, that's where I draw the line. I don't have many. There's a couple jokes I've done where I look back at them going, it's really insensitive. I wish I had said it that way, or I wish I'd qualified in some way. That can be seen as hurtful, though not necessarily to individuals, but a group of people who are victimized in some way. So that's kind of where I edit myself. But that's it. I mean, there's certainly not a subject matter I won't talk about. All the comics, you bitch and moan about, hey, they're trying to cancel me for this joke I made. Most of the time, it's a nothing joke and it doesn't matter. And now you're positioning yourself as this BS voice of, they're not going to cancel me. You can't silence me. For what? Your dumb joke about trans people? Who gives a hoot? I mean, is it important to you? Just move on and not hurt hundreds of thousands of people. It's a choice people make. Dave Chappelle. From KansasCity.com. The question. Did comedian Todd Barry Twitter shame Kansas City into building the new KCI terminal? This is a letter to the editor who wrote, 11 years ago, Todd Barry delivered an enlightening anecdote on Letterman about his experience tweeting with the official KCI account about the lack of restaurant options and the airport's online map. Let's listen.
True story. I was at the Kansas City airport looking for a place to eat. Couldn't find one. Kept walking. Couldn't find one. Finally found this terrible place to eat. So I went on Twitter, wrote new slogan for Kansas City airport. Walk a mile and enjoy one of our 2 food options. Reasonably funny. A few hours later, I get a response from the official Kansas City Airport Twitter account. And it was kind of sad. They were like, due to our design, we actually do have limited food choices. But here's a link to a map of all of our restaurants. Some guy writes back to them, that link doesn't work on cell phones.
I flew into Kansas City one year for the All-Star game, and we landed at 11:45 p.m. on a Sunday night, and this was in the pre-Uber days, but we landed and everything was closed, and we didn't even think we were going to be able to get a cab. I think we had to call a cab company. Again, this is at the airport in a city that you've heard of, but it was a ghost town. Tom Papa said the greatest thing about comedy is if you're funny, you're unstoppable. Doesn't matter what you are, where you come from, if you're funny. I've never seen one truly funny person show up in the clubs or wherever we do it and not succeed. It's unstoppable. Will they get hired by SNL? Maybe not, but they'll be a great comedian and people will find them. It's interesting. Chris Rock had a special come out. People writing about a special were not comedy people. They were people who write about culture and people writing about his opinions and how it's our woke society and all this stuff. It was embarrassing how little they understood about comedy itself. But comedy's become so big now in the absence of real adults in news, comedians are seen as the grown-ups for some reason. You can't write about comedy in those terms to fit your section of the culture that you have to write about all the time. It's not really what it's about, but it's kind of bled over.
Now is the time for America to chart its course to a green energy future. And we can't do it without clean hydrogen. But it's up to regulators in Washington to establish the right rules that advance clean hydrogen today. Clean hydrogen needs the full extent of the production tax credit to decarbonize heavy industry, create high-skilled jobs, and lead the global energy transition. Get the facts at cleanhydrogentoday.org. Paid for by the Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Energy Association.
Lyle Hall, a cantankerous real estate attorney, has lost the ability to walk after a deadly car crash. But he has also gained something, the ability to read people's thoughts. And not just the living. When a girl's voice calls to him from inside the abandoned Old Vic, Lyle is given hope of regaining the use of his legs, but it quickly turns to fear. This ghostly girl says Lyle's daughter, a rookie detective, will die in 4 days. Can he save her? Find out on the first season of Ghost Hampton, a comedy horror podcast.
If you enjoy what I do here, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. Boy, I could use one right now. I'm recording my third straight podcast to accommodate my own schedule, and I didn't bring anything down here to the basement studio, and boy, my mouth's getting kind of dry. Don't you feel bad for me? Why don't you buy me a coffee? Come on. Buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. I appreciate your support for the show. Another way to support the show is become a premium subscriber on Apple Podcasts. We get the episodes ad-free and early. By early, usually around 4 p.m. Eastern, the day before official release. Even if you're like, John, there haven't been that many commercials, not too bad. It's a frictionless way to support the show because you sign up as a subscriber on Apple Podcasts and then it's just kind of set it and forget it. And that's $5. You could try it for a month for free. And if you don't like it, you could just bail. But the first month's free there. So do that on Apple Podcasts. They'll put the option under your nose. Thank you to everybody who supports the show. The LA Times spoke to 4 comics at varying points in their career. They are Morgan J., Lou, Ali Sadiq, and Matt Rife, and their experiences selling specials to the streamers. The LA Times asked them, what's the hardest part about landing a special deal today versus pre-streaming? Yeah, remember not too long ago, there were some 8 or maybe even 9-figure deals? Were there 9-figure deals? There were definitely 8-figure deals going to some of these bigger comedians. Morgan J. said the hardest part is finding somebody who's willing to take a risk on new talent, even with a following of over 1 million people across my social media platforms. The streamers aren't acquiring specials like they used to. Matt Rife said, it's always been competitive and political. However, the politics and what networks think people want is ever changing and often out of your control. Lunel said, I will say this, it's difficult to land anything in this town without proper representation and solid relationships. I've toured with Cat Williams, built a wonderful relationship with Dave Chappelle. Both men have Netflix specials and have been cheerleaders for me throughout my career. I landed my special with Netflix under the umbrella of Chappelle, who's executive producing my special. I know my situation's different from a lot of people, but I think it's my relationships that got me in the door at Netflix. Ali Sadiq said, if it's a network or streamer, you have to get them to believe you're worth putting on their platform. If it's fans, you have to give them something they believe is worth watching. It's not the end-all, be-all. If you don't get with a network, you can still release independently if fans believe in you. The next topic, how has social media, specifically TikTok and Instagram Reels, changed how you approach a special rollout? Rife said, Reels and TikToks are where the majority of people watch stand-up these days, and it's easily shareable, so essentially your fans and friends are able to freely help promote your work with you. Lunel said, with more than 1 million followers on Insta, I feel like I reach more people with a single post than with flyers or other traditional marketing. Don't get me wrong, traditional marketing is very important, but when you have a fan base, you can give them a heads up about an upcoming performance or special in a matter of seconds. Next question, what's the number one piece of advice you'd give to an up-and-comer trying to shop a special to a streamer? Lunel said, take your time, hone your craft, make sure you build a strong fan base and a solid following on social. Remember, it's more important to be a good comic with great material before you start knocking on doors for a special. Matt Rife said, don't stress about it, you don't need them. The power of stand-up comedy is now entirely in the hands of the people. If you can get picked up by a streamer and be part of their exclusive club, great. But you absolutely do not need them for people to watch your special. You can self-release your own special without a streamer, get more views, and make more money. I don't know that streamers have stopped investing in stand-up as much as they have in the past, but I do feel they've completely lost touch of what people actually like in exchange for what they think is the most inclusive and politically beneficial to their platform. Morgan J. said, at one point, Netflix was releasing a comedy special once a week for a full year. Clearly, those numbers have diminished. Max is even more selective about who they have on. Prime Video is only recently getting into comedy. I do know some of the most watched and popular comedy specials in the last several years have been released on YouTube, and I think self-releasing will become more common. Ali Siddiq said, if they're looking at the success of Ari Shaffir, Big J. Okerson, Andrew Schultz, or myself, we're beating out network specials in terms of viewers and helping other comics release their content independently. The barriers to entry for comedy have changed drastically. If you're funny, people will find you. And that is your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, where, of course, you can smash that like button. See you tomorrow. Who doesn't like vacations? Do you need some inspiration for your next road trip? Are you excited to get out there and explore the world again? Hi, I'm Johnny Mac. My podcast is called Travel is Back. Travel is Back is travel for regular people. We hop in the car, we fly coach, we use our miles, we eat at normal places, we stay at normal places. So what I do is I hop in the car, I grab my portable recorder, and I go somewhere. Season 3 kicks off with a road trip to Key West. You can check out the back catalog. There are popular episodes covering Chicago, Nashville, Vancouver, Seattle, a whole bunch more. Travel is Back, road trips for regular people. Follow the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your shows. These are quick, these are casual, and it's for regular people like you. Travel is Back.